in papers, words in books, words on TV, words for crooks, words for comfort, words for peace, words to make the fighting cease, words to tell...
Welcome to the world of Wordaholics. Hello, I'm Gyles Brandreth, and welcome to Wordaholics. Words are things of wonder. Words are transports of delight. Words are what fail people when they see me on television. Of course, words mean nothing unless you have someone to share them with, and I have with me a veritable gallimaufry of guest Wordaholics. They are Milton Jones, Natalie Haynes, Alan Cochrane, and Susie Dent. Before we begin, we should test the depth of our guest's word addiction. Turning first to you, Milton Jones. You are, of course, a stand-up comedian and writer known for your one-liners and puns. So could you tell me a word that you think is particularly punnable?
Well, perhaps best if I give you an example. Strange to think, isn't it, that if you said to someone 30 years ago that today we'd have 3D televisions, they'd have said, that's cheap.
Next, we welcome back our resident classicist, Natalie Haynes. Natalie, even in these frighteningly modern times, Latin phrases are still repeated ad infinitum, if not ad nauseam. But could you suggest a currently unused Latin tag or phrase that you think we should actually bring back?
Well, my favourite, probably, Roman writer is Juvenal. One that we still use in English, but we don't know it comes from him and from Latin, texit hiatum, to paper over the cracks.
So, texit...
hiatum.
Texit hiatum is juvenal.
It is juvenal.
Whereas Yabu Sux is merely juvenile.
Yes.
Susie Dent,
Thank you very much.
You are, of course, the Countess of Countdown, where a 9-letter word is the holy grail for every contestant. So, I wonder if you could tell me what your own favourite 9-letter word is.
It's from East Anglia, and it's a fantastic dialect word, and it's dardle-dum for a daydreamer, which is me completely. So it's a dardle-dum or a dardle-dum-do.
A dardle-dum-do.
Which I just think is beautiful.
Finally, we come to you, Alan Cochrane, outstanding stand-up comedian, whose first solo show was called, I think I remember aright, My Favourite Words in My Best Stories.
Indeed, yes.
So, Alan, could you tell me what actually is your favourite word?
I have several. It changes all the time, but midwifery is a lovely word, isn't it? When I first met my wife, when she was my girlfriend back then, we did it that way around, we're weird. But I told her I liked the word midwifery, and she said that that was no excuse to start a family.
Very good. Now it's time for our first round, the letter of the week. And can I ask you to contain your excitement as we welcome this week's letter? It's the letter G. And here's today's special offer. A must for every home. Yes, it's the letter G. A multi-use letter, if ever there was one. It's a musical note, a unit of measurement, a measure of force, slang for the word gangster, and has a handy attachment for vacuuming curtains. So, stop gawping and get your orders in. Retailing today at a price of £49.99. One glance and it'll be gone. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I give you the letter G. Milton, a glorious letter G for you. Who or what would be a gaping stock?
Is gay-ping stock a festival in the 60s to celebrate the noise made by camp alarm clocks?
You get a double bonus. It's something you could become if you do well on the show.
Oh, rich?
On Radio 4?
No, it's right.
Take the word apart in a different way from the way you did a moment ago.
Gape?
Yes.
To look at something?
Do you mean
could be...
to be pointed at?
Well done, Alan. I think you're the one who's got closest, so you're going to get the point for that. A gaping stock is someone who is the subject of open-mouthed wonder. Much like a laughing stock is the butt of a joke. But of course not to be confused with graping stock, which is of course the practice of adding red wine to gravy. Natalie Haynes, Why might someone raise a glass to the gentleman in black velvet?
Because he is a wizard and it's only polite?
No.
Is it a cocktail?
No. Don't think alcohol. Don't think really contemporary. Think history.
A little furry, big old claws, tiny eyes.
You're right to think animals.
Is he a little mole?
He is a little mole.
Because they're velvety.
They are velvety. But it's not Wind in the Willows. Further back than that.
Further back than Wind in the Willows? Is there such a time?
Actually, I'd be surprised if you did raise a toast to the gentleman in black velvet, because, as far as I know, you are not a 17th century Jacobite.
That is correct.
This toast was very popular among supporters of the deposed King James II and referred to the mole that raised the molehill that caused William III's horse to throw him, and he was injured and then he died. I have to say, I would never toast a mole. They're much better as a carpaccio. Alan Cochrane, what would you do if I presented you with a groaning cake?
Is this modern technology to combat the onset of morbid obesity? And now there's an actual cake that when fat people try to cut it, it just goes, oh, you're not eating more cake, are you?
That is not what this groaning cake is.
No, I do think I know what this groaning cake is. It's a thing that pregnant women make to eat during the labour.
He is spot on. He gets 5 marks.
Do you know what? Do you know what, Gyles? I knew my interest in midwifery would come in handy eventually.
It originates in the mid-16th century. It's a fruitcake given to, occasionally cooked by, new mothers to help them keep up their energy during and indeed just after labour. And when my wife was in labour with our first child, I suggested that she might like to make a cake. And you know, she hit me so hard that when I eventually came round, the baby was actually starting school. Susie, still with the letter G, where does the phrase to ginger someone up come from? To ginger someone up.
This is apparently something Fred Astaire never did with his dancing partner. Surprisingly. No, I didn't actually know this one because I remember being horrified when I heard about it. And I think it's the 18th century, maybe 19th century, and horse dealers used to put a bit of ginger up the backside of their horses, of their animals, so that they would hold their tail well and look very sprightly. And they would get a better price for their horses. And because it's such a pungent spice, I'm not surprised it had that effect. But the worst part of the story is, before they put ginger up, apparently they used to use eels. Which is horrible. And it's called feeging, I think.
You
Anyway,
get 5 full
up.
points for a comprehensive, brilliant answer and a bonus for the extra eel information. Indeed. Okay, the next round is all about phobias. Natalie, I'm coming to you first. Can you tell me what athazagoraphobia is?
Well, if it were Greek, which it seems phobias are normally Greek, right? Because phobia, phobos, is the Greek word for fear. So in that case, an agoraphobia, as I'm sure you know, is a fear of open spaces, a fear of the marketplace, the agora. And so thads must come from thas, which means to sit in Greek. And an A is usually cancels something out. So it should be, although I doubt it is, if Greek were followed, it should be the fear of not being able to get a seat in public.
They cannot get a seat in public.
Because somebody forgot them.
Exactly.
Is that true?
When you're on drugs, normally one stays at home.
To me, ancient Greek is always a drug.
Athazagoraphobia is a fear of being forgotten or ignored. Alan, I'm coming to you next. Alan,
Hello.
What do you suppose frightens those who suffer from hydrophobophobia?
Well, the fact that phobo's in there twice makes me think it's people that are scared of people that are scared of water.
Well, you're inching towards it. I'll tell you what it is. Hydrophobia is rabies, and logically enough, hydrophobophobia is a fear of rabies.
Oh.
And I suffer from infantohydrophobophobia, which is a fear of babies with rabies. Susie, you're up next. Can you tell me what a sufferer of novacophobia would be fearing?
Okay, I have to sound like a real swot, but I do know this one because one day I found myself looking up a morbid fear or dislike of your mother-in-law for a friend. And this one was right next to it, and it's the Cinderella syndrome, isn't it? It's the fear of your stepmother. And the stepmothers have had a really horrible time in history, really.
Can I say you get 5 points and a bonus for social awareness? Now, Milton, what exactly would ail you if you were suffering from oikophobia?
Is that a West Country fear of Swedish furniture shops? Oik is Greek for...
House, and oikos is a house.
Is it a house? Is it a fear of houses?
Natalie has got you over the threshold.
Excellent.
Oikophobia is a fear of one's domestic surroundings, a fear of one's house and home. So that is what oikophobia is. A fear of having your house blown down by the breath of a large wolf is known as oinkophobia. Finally, in this round, teams, do you have any new phobias that you've uncovered that you reckon should be added to the dictionaries? Milton?
Fear of becoming a monk. That's cloisterphobia.
Susie, have you got one?
Well, I've got the editors of the Oxford English Dictionary once genuinely received a letter from somebody asking for the name of the phobia for the fear of drinking your own bathwater. And without batting an eyelid, they sent it back, and it's something like autolutrophobia or something. But I absolutely love that one.
One of the joys of this is that there's probably also a word for people who love drinking their own bathwater.
Possibly. Yes, autolufophilist.
Oh, yeah.
Something
I'm
like
only
that.
asking for a friend.
Natalie, do you have a phobia for us?
I would like to institute the phobia of being afraid of quite a stroppy person who has the power to let you in or out of a building. Friendophobia.
All good things must come to an end, and on a completely unrelated matter, so must this round. It's neck and neck, which is appropriate because we're about to enter the round called Cliché Corner. And it's all about dodging clichés and finding fresh alternatives for tired old sayings. Because when all's said and done, the writing's on the wall for clichés. Alan and Susie, how would you find a new way to express this cliché, particularly beloved by business people? Getting all of your ducks in a row.
Well, I think instead of saying getting all of your ducks in a row, we should start to say my plum sauce and pancakes are at the ready.
Susie, have you got an alternative for getting all your ducks in a row?
Well, there's a beauty salon that does sort of eyebrows, etc., and it's called All Your Plucks in a Mo.
Milton and Natalie, I'd like you to reinvent this particularly appropriate cliché. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Natalie.
I'm going to go with sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me unless you carve the words onto some sticks and stones and then pelt me with them, and then that will hurt. It's a bit longer.
It's not as catchy, is it?
Milton?
If you fire a laser at me, you'll probably only improve my eyesight. Or the higher you build your barricades, the better reception my iPhone gets.
There is a great Rihanna lyric, which is, sticks and stones may break my bones, but chains and whips excite me. Which is wonderful. So I'm taking that one.
All of which mickles complete the full muckle that is our cliché round. So it's time to take stock of the situation. Who is ahead? Oh, it's again very, very close, but Natalie and Milton are just in the lead. Oh, now, this next round is named after a phrase people have been muttering to me throughout my long and varied broadcasting career. It's called, you can't say that. As in, you can't say that on the radio, you can't say that on the television. And Gyles, what were you thinking? You can't say that to Her Majesty. In this round, I'm going to give panellists words for which no equivalent exists in English. For example, there is no word in English for the German word Schadenfreude, which always gives the Germans some sort of perverse delight. Susie, you're first up this time. Allow me to introduce you to the word tingo, T-I-N-G-O. This is a word from the Pascuense language spoken by the residents of Easter Island. But what do you think the word tingo actually means?
There's a book, isn't there, called Toujours Tingo, which is all about words from around the world which have no equivalent in English. And this one means borrowing items from a friend's house one by one until there is nothing left.
You get 5 full points. Congratulations. Milton Jones, the untranslatable word we have for you is an Indonesian one. It's the word geus. And this is, in fact, a word from Indonesian comedy criticism. That's to help you in the right direction.
Oh, thanks.
Milton, what do you think geus means?
Well, I do know this because I've done a lot of gigs in Indonesia, and they often shout, Gyles, Gyles. And you say, what do you mean, Gyles? They say, it's initials. Just stop. And you say, well, why? And they say, well, your script is bad, script is bad. Well, what kind of script should I have? And they say, JS, JavaScript.
I'm going to give you some alternatives, Milton, to help you on the way. Okay, do you think JS means A, a joke so offensive that it causes others to attack the performer? B, an impression of a public figure that's accurate but not in the least amusing? Or C, a joke so poorly told and so unfunny that one cannot help but laugh?
You've been reading my reviews, haven't you? The latter.
You mean the last?
Yes.
You mean the last. You are correct in the last, and you get a couple of points for that. Well done, Milton. It does indeed mean, yes, a joke so poorly told and so unfunny that one cannot help but laugh. And so to Natalie Haynes. Natalie, we're giving you the word arigata maiwaku. It's a Japanese word. Nat, what does it mean?
At the risk of playing the Susie Dent card, I actually know what this means.
No, that is the idea of the game.
But I know what it means because I went through a phase of having to do interviews about different languages and, and why it was worth learning another language. And this is one of those phrases that's so perfect and I so much wish exists that it's stayed with me ever since. And it is the Japanese word describing what it means when somebody offers to do you a favour and you say, oh no, please don't, it'd be fine if you didn't. And they insist on doing it, even though you would very much rather they didn't do it. And then they do it, and somehow it goes wrong. And it would have been very much better for you if they hadn't done it in the first place as you asked them, but because of social convention, you have to behave as though you are in some way grateful.
This is a kind of verbal version of world music, this programme, isn't it? It's tremendous. You're completely right. You get 5 full points for that.
Thank you very much.
Just, can I throw in one Japanese word that I learnt just yesterday?
Please.
It doesn't really fit the bill.
I knew you'd come in that kimono for a reason.
No, there is an idiom, opening the kimono. It means to publish your financial results, bad ones. Anyway, going back to the Japanese word, it was parsley, and I have got a Japanese neighbour, and apparently at parsley, it's Japanese for parsley, and it's for a spinster because it's the only thing left on the plate. Isn't that sad? Anyway, sorry about that.
No, most listeners will remember that for the rest of their lives.
But to be fair, for Radio 4, that's not that long, is it?
Well, anyway, Alan Cochrane, the word we have for you comes from the Czech Republic, and the word is prozvonit. 1 in 3 choice for you. Prozvonit is A, to ring a mobile phone once and then ring off so that someone rings you back. B, to film oneself impersonating a statue in a public place and post the resulting clip on the internet. Or C, a toast to those who used to be enemies but are no longer.
I think I would go with A, to phone somebody, let it ring once and then hang up and let them ring you back. But that may be that I grew up in Yorkshire. I have a lot of friends very capable of this Czech Republic style of behaviour if it does prove to be that.
Yorkshire has done you proud. You get full marks. That is the answer. Bright copper kettles, warm woolen mittens and brown paper packages tied up with string are just 3 items that no one in their right mind would consider as being among their favourite things. This is a round called Words Fail Us, and in it I'm going to ask the panel for one of their least favourite things, their least favourite word. Milton, I'd like you to go first this time. Which words would you happily see the back of?
I've only been in prison once. And it was because I was at a self-service cafeteria and I was rummaging through the condiments and an old lady whispered, "Assault, please."
Natalie, are there any words that really rile you?
Yeah, loads. My current most unfavourite is when people say guesstimate. And what I would like to do is hold them on the back of the head and then slam them into a wall and say, "An estimate is a guess, you cretin. It doesn't need to be squashed into another word. It was already a guess. Stop talking. Never talk again."
So points there to Milton and Natalie. Alan, I'm sure most words madden you to a greater or lesser extent, but are there any that you truly despise?
Oh, I particularly dislike some of the phrases that politicians use because I think they're the problem for how they distance people from politicians. I think they speak in a way that the people don't. I know you're an ex-politician, Gyles, but I like you. Responsible drinking is one of them. I mean, responsible drinking doesn't mean anything to anybody in the real world. What they're trying to say is don't get drunk too often. I mean, responsible drinking, who does that? I'm going to have a glass of sherry and open a mini cash icer. I just don't think it...
Finally, Susie. Impossible, as it very nearly is, to imagine any word attracting your fragrant ire. Are there any you simply can't bear?
Well, 2 would are definitely not fragrant and moist and gusset, particularly in the same sentence. Hate those words. They are terrible words, banned forever. And actually, I did have another habit that I hated, but Natalie did it just a few minutes ago and I thought it sounded quite nice, so I might have changed my mind. But it's "so" at the beginning of every answer. If you watch the news these days, people say, "So, there are 5 million of us out here. So, what does that mean?"
So. There we have it, a smorgasbord of hateful words identified, consigned to the dustbin of history. The next round is called New Words for Old, where we'll be opening up an old dictionary packed with old words and asking our panellists what all this actually means. This week's dictionary is a glossary of words used in the dialect of Cheshire, a sturdy 19th century volume that came in very handy when I was the Member of Parliament for the city of Chester and could use it to look up all of the many extraordinary things my constituents were calling me. Natalie Haynes, I'd like you to go first. Can you imagine what might be meant by the old Cheshire word parliamenting?
Lying.
No.
Fiddling expenses.
No.
Talking, is it talking
It
too
is
much?
basically talking for the sake of it. Parliamenting is talking for the sake of talking, something you'll never find me doing.
Not on this show, Gyles.
No, nay, never. I say not by a long chalk. Indeed, no. You get a point for that. Well done. In fact, a couple of points, because you got it without help. Alan Cochrane, a slice of pure Cheshire for you now. What do you suppose is caper lash?
I think it's a night out including adventure and drinking.
Irresponsible.
Dream on while I give you some options. Do you think caper lash might be a stale beer, A, B, abusive language, or C, a jarred neck, you know, from when you get your cape stuck in a carriage door?
I'm glad you finally mentioned my cape, Gyles. I should really wear it on television rather than radio. I think it was the second. What was the second one that you said?
The second was abusive language.
Yeah, because you get a tongue lashing now, don't you? So it's probably a version of that, surely.
It is a version of that.
Good.
Caper lash is abusive language. You get 2 points for that. If, for example, one were on the terraces at Old Trafford and observed the great Rio Ferdinand making a defensive howler, one would be perfectly within one's rights to hollow, "Ahoy there, Rio! Attend with more alacrity to your footballing duties, or I will subject you to the most fearful caper nipple out. It was my familiarity with football that really got me re-elected. Susie, we're still in Cheshire with an old word. Can you give me the correct definition of bang beggar? What's a bang beggar?
Is it George Osborne with a frying pan dealing with homelessness? Or was it literally somebody who would go around and bang beggars into submission with a truncheon or something? In the olden days, obviously, we're talking.
Well, you're sort of there. I think you really
Authority.
are sort of there.
Police.
I mean,
Policeman.
the bang beggar is a beadle, someone whose job it is to drive beggars away. And in the words of the glossary, prosecute them as the law directs. So your figure with the truncheon is almost all there, so yes. And in fact, when the bang beggar was in town, the cry would go up amongst the vagrants, "Watch out! Beetles about!" But you got there in a roundabout way, so you get 2 points. Finally, Milton Jones, here's one for you. What do you think is an old hob?
Is it the last words of someone who's poisoned by an old hobnob?
Let me offer you some possibilities, okay? Do you think an old hob might be A, a horse's head wrapped in a sheet, B, a village well, or C, the title bestowed on the eldest woman in a village?
Is it the horse's head?
It is the horse's head. It's an old Cheshire custom where one would carry about a horse's head wrapped in a sheet to frighten people. Now, and to this day in Cheshire, children will knock on your door at Halloween and ask, horse's head wrapped in a sheet or treat? So, that full-blooded etymological fistfight marks the end of this week's Lexical Olympiad, and I see from my scoreboard that this week's winners, but by a very tight margin, because there was scholarship and wit on both sides. But Susie Dent and Alan Cochrane, you have been defeated by Natalie Haynes and Milton Jones. Brings us to the end of this week's Wordaholics. Will you please thank one more time our wonderful guests, Alan Cochrane, Susie Dent, Natalie Haynes and Milton Jones. Until next time, goodbye and mind how you tingo! You've been listening to Wordaholics, chaired by me, Gyles Brandreth. It's written by John Hunter and James Kettle. The producer is Claire Jones.